The message arrived on every screen across Earth simultaneously, from Times Square's towering displays to the smallest smartphone in a remote village. The alien text shimmered before resolving into clear English. Your solar system is now under the protection of the Galactic Empire. Submit or face immediate conquest. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the UN Security Council's emergency session, her weathered hands gripping the podium as she addressed the gathered leaders. 30 years of military service hadn't prepared her for this moment. No one could have prepared for this. The chamber buzzed with whispered conversations and the occasional sound of a notification, probably another update about the massive fleet holding position just beyond Mars. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. 12 hours ago, we detected 3,000 ships entering our solar system. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Their weapons could reduce our cities to ash before we could even blink. And yet, she paused, allowing a slight smile to cross her face. And yet, they're asking for our submission instead of taking it by force. That tells us something crucial about these so-called imperial overlords. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Outside, the streets of New York teemed with a strange mix of panic and celebration. Some people were boarding up windows and stocking supplies, while others threw impromptu first contact parties. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries, but no one had expected it to come as an ultimatum. In her lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Lisa Thompson worked frantically to decode the patterns in the alien transmissions. Her team had been analyzing signals from deep space for years, but this was different. These weren't random radio waves or distant echoes. These were active communication protocols, and hidden within them, she found something extraordinary. "Admiral," she spoke into her secure line, her voice tight with excitement and fear, "we found a weakness. The Empire's entire communication network. It's built on principles we abandoned decades ago. They never considered that a primitive species would have already evolved beyond it." Meanwhile, in low Earth orbit, Commander David Walsh performed another systems check on humanity's secret weapon. The project had been developed in absolute secrecy, a collaboration between 30 nations over 15 years. They'd called it Project Firewall, a planetary defense system unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Not because it was the most powerful, but because it approached defense from an angle no spacefaring race had ever considered necessary. The Empire's deadline was approaching. 24 hours to submit or face the consequences. But as Admiral Chen looked out over the UN chamber, she saw something in the eyes of Earth's leaders that gave her hope. Not fear, not resignation, but determination. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting amongst itself, but now, faced with an external threat, ancient rivalries were melting away in real time. She tapped her earpiece, receiving the confirmation she'd been waiting for. Project Firewall was ready. Dr. Thompson's team had cracked the final piece of the puzzle, and Commander Walsh's orbital platforms were in position. Now they just needed to spring the trap. The Admiral straightened her uniform and addressed the chamber one final time. "The Empire expects us to either kneel or die fighting. But they're about to learn something about humanity that will shake their galactic civilization to its core. We're not just going to survive this encounter. We're going to change their entire understanding of what a primitive species is capable of." In high orbit, the first wave of Imperial ships began their approach. They had no idea they were about to face something their advanced technology had never prepared them for: human ingenuity. The Imperial ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like metallic thunderclouds, their massive hulls reflecting the morning sun. Dr. Thompson watched from her underground lab as her screens lit up with unprecedented data readings. The aliens' shield technology was broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't have been possible. Yet somehow, they were missing the most obvious gaps in their defenses. "They're running their entire fleet on a unified quantum network," she muttered, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards. "It's elegant, advanced, and completely vulnerable to good old-fashioned signal interference." She caught the eye of her assistant, Dr. James Chen, who had been working with her for the past decade on quantum encryption. They shared a knowing look. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the ones advanced civilizations overlooked. Up in orbit, Commander Walsh was orchestrating what would either be humanity's greatest triumph or its last stand. The Project Firewall satellites looked primitive compared to the Imperial vessels, simple geometric shapes covered in what appeared to be standard solar panels. The Empire's scans would show them as basic power collection arrays, the kind any developing civilization would have in orbit. That was exactly what humanity wanted them to think. Status report on all firewall nodes. Walsh commanded, his voice steady despite the stakes. The responses came back one by one. All 30 satellites were functioning perfectly, their true nature still undetected by the Imperial fleet. Back at the UN, Admiral Chen was buying time. The Empire's holographic ambassador, a tall, humanoid figure with iridescent skin, stood before the Security Council, its translucent form towering over the assembled leaders. "Your species shows remarkable potential." The ambassador's voice resonated through the chamber. "That is why the Empire offers protection rather than immediate subjugation. Your integration into our civilization will be beneficial for all. And if we have questions about this protection?" Admiral Chen asked, carefully watching Dr. Thompson's status updates on her secure tablet. The quantum interference program needed just 10 more minutes to fully map the Imperial fleet's network architecture. The ambassador's expression shifted to what might have been amusement. "Questions are natural for a species at your stage of development. However, time is limited. Already, other galactic powers move to claim unprotected systems. The Empire's patience is not infinite." In her lab, Dr. Thompson made a breakthrough that almost caused her to laugh out loud. The Empire's supposedly advanced quantum network was based on principles humanity had abandoned years ago due to a fundamental flaw, one that her team had discovered during a failed experiment in 2031. "They never found it," she whispered to herself, "because they never failed the way we did." She opened a secure channel to Commander Walsh. "The network has a cascade point. If we hit it right, we can trigger a system-wide shutdown. Their entire fleet will go dark." Commander Walsh received the data with grim satisfaction. Each firewall satellite was more than just a power collector. It was a quantum disruption device designed to exploit exactly this kind of vulnerability. The Empire had built its technological marvel on a house of cards, and humanity was about to give it a push. But as the final preparations were made, something unexpected appeared on the long-range sensors. More ships were arriving. But these weren't Imperial vessels. These ships were different, their designs completely alien to both human and Imperial architecture. The galactic neighborhood was about to get a lot more crowded, and Earth's plan would need to work perfectly on the first try. They wouldn't get a second chance. Admiral Chen felt her tablet vibrate with an urgent message. She read it while maintaining her poker face before the Imperial ambassador, but her heart rate spiked. The other ships weren't just random visitors. They were heading straight for Earth with clear purpose. The question was, were they here to help, or to claim the prize for themselves? The approaching ships sliced through space like obsidian arrows, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. Admiral Chen's intelligence team identified them as vessels belonging to the Centauri Collective, the Empire's oldest rival and, according to intercepted communications, a civilization with a reputation for turning proxy wars into profit. "We have 13 minutes before the Centauri fleet enters weapons range," Commander Walsh reported from orbit, his voice tense but controlled. "The Imperial ambassador is demanding an immediate answer, and these new players just made everything a lot more complicated." In her underground lab, Dr. Thompson worked furiously to adapt their plan. The firewall satellites had been calibrated for the Imperial fleet's quantum network, but the Centauri ships operated on completely different principles. Her screens filled with cascading data as she attempted to analyze their transmission patterns. "There's something odd about their approach vector," she said, pulling up a holographic display of the solar system. "They're deliberately positioning themselves between us and the Imperial fleet. Almost like," her eyes widened with sudden understanding. The Imperial ambassador's hologram flickered impatiently before the UN Security Council. "Your time grows short," it announced, its previously diplomatic tone hardening. "We detect the Centauri approach. They will offer you deals, promises, treaties, all lies. The Empire protects. The Empire endures. You have 5 minutes to accept our protection, or we will be forced to take action." Admiral Chen stood slowly, her mind racing through the implications of Dr. Thompson's latest data burst. The Centauri ships weren't just positioning themselves strategically, they were creating a signal shadow, a communications blind spot that could either doom or save humanity's plan. "Before we give our answer," she addressed the ambassador, "I have one final question. In all the Empire's history of protecting worlds like ours, has any civilization ever surprised you?" The ambassador's expression shifted to something almost like pity. Young species always believe they are unique, that they alone might stand against the tide of progress. It is a phase, nothing more. High above Earth, Commander Walsh noticed something critical. The firewall satellites were picking up irregular energy spikes from both fleets. The Imperial ships were charging weapons, but the Centauri vessels were powering up something else entirely, something that made his targeting computers go haywire. "All stations, prepare for immediate execution of Protocol Omega," he ordered, his fingers hovering over the activation sequence. Everything they'd planned, everything they'd prepared for, had assumed they'd face only the Imperial fleet. Now they had to thread a needle between two advanced alien armadas, and the slightest miscalculation would mean the end of human independence. Dr. Thompson's voice crackled over the secure channel. "David, wait. The Centauri ships, they're not what they seem. I'm detecting temporal distortions in their wake. These aren't just warships, they're—" Her transmission cut off as the Imperial ships suddenly began moving into attack formation. The ambassador's hologram smiled coldly. "Your time is up. The Empire's patience is exhausted." Admiral Chen's tablet displayed a final message from Dr. Thompson. "Now or nie wieder." She looked up at the ambassador, years of military training crystallizing into this moment. Humanity had one shot, one chance to prove that sometimes the smartest person in the room isn't the one with the most advanced technology, but the one who understands its foundations. The entire UN chamber held its breath. In orbit, Commander Walsh's hand hovered over the activation switch. In her lab, Dr. Thompson watched her quantum readings spike off the charts, and somewhere between Earth and Mars, two alien fleets prepared to turn Earth's solar system into a battlefield. What no one except Admiral Chen knew was that humanity's plan had already been in motion for the last 10 minutes. The question wasn't whether it would work, it was what would happen in the chaos that followed. The Imperial ambassador's hologram flickered violently, its translucent form distorting as Earth's atmosphere suddenly charged with unprecedented levels of electromagnetic energy. But instead of coming from the firewall satellites, the surge emanated from somewhere deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Secondary defense grid activated. A new voice announced over the UN chamber's speakers. Dr. Thompson's head snapped up in her lab. She knew that voice. It belonged to Dr. Anna Rivera, who had supposedly died in a laboratory accident 3 years ago, the same accident that had proven quantum networks could be catastrophically disrupted. "Thompson, Walsh, proceed with primary sequence," Admiral Chen commanded, her voice steady despite the revelation unfolding. "Dr. Rivera's team has given us the opening we needed. The Admiral had kept humanity's greatest secret, even from its defenders, a parallel project hidden beneath the waves, designed not just to defend Earth, but to rewrite the rules of space warfare." In orbit, Commander Walsh watched in awe as massive structures began rising from the Earth's oceans, breaking through the surface like mechanical leviathans. They weren't weapons. They were quantum field generators, built using the very technology that had supposedly killed Dr. Rivera and her team. The accident hadn't been an accident at all. It had been proof of concept. The Imperial ambassador's form stabilized, but now its confident smile had vanished. "What is this primitive deception? Your species cannot possibly possess." The hologram froze mid-sentence as the quantum disruption field expanded, catching both alien fleets in its web. "That's the thing about being primitive," Admiral Chen declared, standing tall before the frozen hologram. "Everyone expects you to think like a primitive, to fight like one. But humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to learn from failure." The Centauri ships, however, didn't react as expected. Instead of going dark like the Imperial vessels, they began to transform, their obsidian hulls shifting like liquid metal. Dr. Thompson's screens exploded with new data as she realized the truth. They're not Centauri ships at all. She breathed, watching the readings with wide eyes. They're automated probes, but these energy signatures, they're human technology, just decades more advanced than anything we have now. Commander Walsh's tactical display confirmed it. The mysterious fleet was revealing its true nature. "Admiral," he reported, his voice tense with disbelief, "you're going to want to see this. They're broadcasting an authentication code. It's from 2157. In her underwater facility, Dr. Rivera's voice crackled over the quantum-secured channel. Time dilation was always the Empire's blind spot. They never imagined a species would learn to manipulate it before achieving faster-than-light travel. They never imagined humans. The Imperial ships hung powerless in space, caught between humanity's present ingenuity and future technology. But as Admiral Chen watched the situation unfold, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The quantum field wasn't just disrupting the Imperial fleet's systems. It was causing some kind of chain reaction in their drive cores. "All stations, be advised," she broadcast, her military training kicking in. "We may have just opened Pandora's box. Whatever happens in the next few minutes will determine not just Earth's future, but potentially the structure of time itself." Dr. Thompson's screens began showing cascade warnings she'd never seen before. The interaction between the quantum field, the Imperial technology, and whatever their future selves had sent back was creating something new, something that neither humanity's present nor future had predicted. The Admiral's tablet displayed one final message from Dr. Rivera. The temporal convergence wasn't an accident. We needed both fleets here, now, at this exact moment. What happens next will change everything, assuming we survive it. Above Earth, reality itself began to bend as three different technological paradigms collided: Imperial quantum tech, human ingenuity, and the temporal mechanics of humanity's own future. The question wasn't just whether Earth would remain free, but whether the universe itself was ready for what humanity had set in motion. The fabric of space-time rippled around the Imperial fleet as three technologies collided: humanity's quantum disruptors, future tech temporal drives, and the Empire's destabilizing ship cores. Dr. Thompson's screens blazed with readings that defied known physics, numbers that shouldn't have been possible in our universe. "The temporal convergence is creating a quantum gateway." Dr. Rivera's voice crackled through the comm system. "The Empire's ships, their cores aren't just destabilizing, they're synchronizing. They've done this before. This is why they conquer worlds. They're not building an empire, they're building a network." Admiral Chen watched as the Imperial ships began to align in a precise geometric pattern, their failed systems somehow working in harmony with the quantum disruption field. "They're using our attack against them," she realized, her years of tactical training finally connecting the dots. "Every civilization they've conquered, every world they've protected, they're all nodes in a vast quantum network spanning the galaxy." Commander Walsh's voice cut through the chaos. "Admiral, the future probes are moving into formation. They're mirroring the Imperial fleet's pattern. Dr. Thompson, are you seeing this?" In her lab, Dr. Thompson stared at her quantum readings in dawning comprehension. "The future probes aren't just mimicking them, they're completing the pattern. We didn't send those probes back to stop the Empire. We sent them back to perfect their network." The Imperial ambassador's hologram suddenly stabilized, but its appearance had changed. Gone was the patronizing smile, replaced by an expression of genuine respect. Finally, it said, "A species that understands. The Empire doesn't conquer. We connect. Each civilization we encounter adds their unique understanding to the network." But none before had mastered both quantum mechanics and temporal manipulation. You were the missing link. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her mind racing ahead of the conversation. "The network isn't for control. It's for survival, isn't it? You're preparing for something." The ambassador nodded solemnly. "In every timeline, in every iteration, the galaxy faces extinction in precisely 10,000 years. Only a unified network of all sentient species, combining all possible technological approaches, can prevent it. We are not your conquerors. We are your future allies. But Dr. Rivera wasn't buying it. Walsh, Thompson, execute Protocol Omega Final now, she commanded. The firewall satellites and underwater generators suddenly shifted their quantum fields, not to disable the network, but to fundamentally alter it. Humanity won't be just another node in your network, Admiral Chen declared. We're rewriting the terms of this alliance. Earth remains sovereign, and our quantum temporal technology remains under our control. We'll join your effort to save the galaxy, but as equals, not subjects. The Imperial ships hung suspended between destruction and transcendence. For a moment, it seemed the ambassador would refuse. Then its hologram smiled, not with condescension, but with genuine admiration. In 12 million years of building the network, you are the first species to successfully negotiate during their own assimilation. Perhaps, the ambassador paused, its form shifting to reveal its true, more complex nature. Perhaps that is exactly why your node will be crucial to our survival. The quantum gateway stabilized, linking Earth's defenses with both the Imperial network and humanity's future technology. But as the connections formed, Dr. Thompson noticed something in her readings that made her gasp. The network wasn't just linking different species across space, it was connecting them across time itself. The temporal convergence, she whispered, it's not a side effect. It's the whole point. The Empire isn't building a defense against something that will happen in 10,000 years. They're building a bridge to escape what's happening right now, in a timeline we can't see. Admiral Chen looked at her tablet one last time. A final message from humanity's future scrolled across the screen. The negotiation was just the beginning. The real test starts now. Above Earth, the combined fleets began to pulse with new energy as the quantum temporal network activated fully. Humanity had secured its independence, but in doing so, they'd inherited a responsibility that spanned not just the galaxy, but time itself. The question wasn't whether Earth would join the galactic community, it was whether the galactic community was ready for what humanity would bring to it. 3 months after Earth's integration into the quantum temporal network, Admiral Chen stood at the same UN podium where it had all begun. The chamber looked different now, with holographic displays showing real-time data from thousands of civilizations across the galaxy. Each point of light represented a species that had faced the same choice Earth had, submit or resist. But only humanity had chosen a third path. Our first diplomatic missions have established contact with 30 different civilizations, she reported, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen the impossible become routine. What we've learned is both humbling and inspiring. Each species in the network brings something unique, something that might be crucial to our collective survival. In orbit, Commander Walsh oversaw the construction of Earth's first quantum temporal hub. The massive structure incorporated both Imperial and human technology, its design a testament to the new partnership. The firewall satellites, once weapons of last resort, now served as key nodes in the galaxy's most sophisticated communication network. Dr. Thompson had moved her lab to the hub, working alongside scientists from a dozen different species. The beautiful thing, she explained to a group of wide-eyed students during a virtual tour, is that we were all wrong and all right at the same time. The Empire thought strength came from unity. We thought it came from independence. The truth was, it came from both. In her underwater facility, Dr. Rivera continued her temporal research, now with access to technologies beyond human imagination. The accident that had led to her disappearance had actually shown her glimpses of multiple futures, including the one they'd narrowly avoided by choosing cooperation over conflict. The timeline is secure for now, she told Admiral Chen during their weekly briefing. But the threat we're preparing for, it's unlike anything any species has faced alone. We're not just building a network. We're building an ark for consciousness itself. The Imperial ambassador, now a permanent liaison to Earth, had shed its humanoid appearance for its natural form, a shifting matrix of light and energy. Your species continues to surprise us, it communicated during a public broadcast. You've already proposed modifications to the network that our brightest minds never considered. Perhaps this is why the temporal calculations always showed Earth as a crucial nexus point. But it was a young engineer's discovery that truly demonstrated humanity's unique contribution. While studying the quantum temporal network, she found that human emotions created distinct ripples in the field, ripples that could be used to strengthen the connections between civilizations. The very thing the Empire had dismissed as primitive, human empathy, turned out to be a fundamental force in the universe. Admiral Chen concluded her UN address by revealing the next phase of Earth's role in the galactic community. We're not just joining an alliance or building a defense. We're pioneering a new way for civilizations to exist together. The Empire sought to protect through control. We've shown there's another way, to protect through understanding. As she spoke, the holographic displays showed a new anomaly forming at the edge of known space. But unlike 3 months ago, Earth didn't face it alone. Thousands of civilizations, connected across space and time, stood ready to face whatever challenge emerged. Humanity had not only secured its place among the stars, but had fundamentally changed how species interact across the cosmos. Dr. Thompson's final entry in her research log perhaps summed it up best. The Empire came looking for another node in their network. Instead, they found partners in the greatest engineering project in universal history. They sought to protect us from the future. We showed them how to learn from it. In the end, it wasn't our technology that saved us. It was our humanity. Above Earth, the quantum temporal hub pulsed with new energy, sending ripples through time and space. The message was clear. Humanity had declared its independence not just from the Galactic Empire, but from the very limitations that had defined civilization until now. The stars were no longer just points of light in the distance. They were beacons of a future where cooperation transcended not just space, but time itself.